translation. Okay, so Sama, gelir internete. Okay. So again, I would like to welcome all guests in-house and online. Today's topic, the major two topics. The first, we would like to present the report prepared by the experts of the Center of Analysis of International Relations, and it's related to Azerbaijanophobia in Armenia. And Sama, Tofiq müəllim üçün rus dilində və digər qonaqlar üçün rus dilində də kopyaları gətiririz də. Hər iki dildə bizdə var. And today's presentation in English, we prepared this report about a month ago in Russian language and made presentation for online, and now we are presenting English version. And the second topic is the elections in Armenia, the results of the elections, what will be the impact for the situation in the South Caucasus, but also especially for relationship between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So let me start with report. Why I think some can think that maybe we have to look at the future, at the peace and reconciliation, and this is true. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan, Bayramov, just quite very recently again said that Azerbaijan is ready to work for the comprehensive peace agreement with Armenia. There is a number of issues between two countries. The issues related to delimitation, demarcation, issues related to the situation with the landmines, and some others. But the problem with entrenched Azerbaijanophobia in Armenia should be also addressed, because if we would like to look at the future, at the reconciliation between, then this is the problem. Several years ago, I would like to mention that several years ago, the Armenian delegation in the Council of Europe disseminated a report about Armenophobia in Azerbaijan. While Azerbaijan was facing occupation, definitely there was some elements of Armenophobia in Azerbaijan, and we have 1 million refugees, 700,000 from IDPs, from formerly occupied territories, and we have sometimes overlooked 250,000 Azerbaijani refugees from Armenia. The Armenian territory is now fully ethnically cleansed. So, as I said, the problems in both societies with the mutual hatred exist, but I and my colleagues in the center, we strongly believe that the Azerbaijanophobia in Armenia, hatred, has much more structured, much more entrenched features, which should be dealt by Armenian government, should be dealt by the international actors, international NGOs working in the region, because what we see sometimes in the media, we always read, especially the Western media, we point to Azerbaijan. Okay, this happens. There is some events against Armenians, Armenophobia events. I mean the sentiments expressed in Azerbaijan, but this is kind of the work for the international community to make mutual hatred less visible. I mean, we're realists, so I mean, it's possible to remove it in a short time. We see even in Europe after Second World War, still we see some of the elements of hatred, outbreak of hatred, and still it echoes after 70 years after now even more than 75 years after the Second World War. So I will start with the presentation, and then we'll move um, to the elections in Armenia, and we'll be happy to respond to the questions. We have questions sent to you to your email, and you will forward to me, and also check the website, the Facebook. So we have so the this report is downloadable from internet from our site aircenter.az. We have versions in 3 languages. So Russian version is downloadable from the Russian site, and the English from the English side. The main concept of the report, you have here the presentation. So it's I think several elements. We're dealing with several elements in Armenian society. It's about history, about ethnocentrism, that the concept that the Armenian is sort of better people than the neighboring ethnic groups, especially Azerbaijanis. And in this regard, we have hatred expressed at the highest level, at the government officials, the leaders, and we have in the public discourse, we have in the social media, and reports indeed investigate all these features. One of the, I would say, the pillars of the ethnic hatred towards Azerbaijanis is related to the concept elaborated by Garegin Njde. He's the Armenian national hero. You can see his monument in the center of Yerevan, and actually it was erected relatively recently. And interestingly enough, the current leader, Nikol Pashinyan, who is dubbed, I don't know, for some reasons, by especially Western media, as a Democrat, he actually praised Njde, and because the monument to Njde was erected during the previous regime, but the Pashinyan reconfirmed that Njde remains of Armenia. And Njde elaborated in 1930s the concept of the technotron, that's the Tegakron, sorry, that's the theory of the racial ethnic superiority, of Armenian superiority. And he defined Armenian people in 3 groups: those people who promotes Armenian nationhood, Armenian ethnic values, and those people who kind of neutral to that concept. And we have to remember that in 1930s, it was the exactly time of the when the Nazism flourishing in Germany and in some parts of Europe. And we can say that the Njde concepts indeed emanates from Nazism. And some of his theories indeed is a copy-paste. I have some problem. Yeah, copy-paste of this concept. The Armenian nationalist narrative, based on several important points, it's they pretend to be the first officially adopt the country which officially adopt Christianity, they're older than Rome, and etc. And these narratives indeed widely circulated in Armenian society. It's not only about history. The problem with I was speaking about Njde, Tsakakron, his concept Tsakakron of the Armenian racial superiority. But unfortunately, 2 leaders of Armenia, Robert Kachiryan and Serge Sargsyan, and they both were candidates at these elections which passed. And you know, the Robert Kachiryan was the main contender of of Nikol Pashinyan. Kocharian is known that he said that the Armenian and Azerbaijanis are ethnically incompatible, which is not true from historical perspective. I strongly disagree with the concept of ancient hatred. Armenian and Azerbaijanis for centuries lived in this region, and generally in wider Middle East. Turks and Armenians interacted, at least lived peacefully. So this idea about genetically incompatible Armenians, Azerbaijanis were condemned, including by the Secretary General of the Council of Europe. At that time, it was the Walter Schwimmer. Interestingly enough, the Serge Sarkisyan also perpetuated similar concept, spoke about used the hatred language. The spouse of the Robert Kacharian. Yeah, we have problem.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Okay, so we have the box.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because I don't have here. No, it's not on my screen. Biraz dikkat tezelesinler. Ümumiyyətlə hardadılar onlar? Yeah. So I'm sorry. It looks like you have on your screen the white box. It's the technical error. So yeah, but I will continue with my presentations. The ideas of Njde, ideas of ethnic incompatibility of Armenians and Azerbaijanis perpetuated, and unfortunately the current, now the re-elected Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan also proliferated some of the mythologies, and I think we missed the opportunity for peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan 2 years ago. When the Pashinyan came to power, he spoke about a bit more in moderate language. But what we've seen during his tenure, and he's infamous now, the slogan which he voiced in Karabakh, in Hankendi on 5th August of 2019, that the Karabakh is Armenia, and Armenia is not going to yield an inch of occupied territories to Azerbaijan. I think that was the continuation of this policy of which basically we've seen since 90s. So that's why I have problem defining Nikol Pashinyan as a Democrat. Nothing during his tenure speaks about his democratic inclinations. If we accept the concept that democracy is only for Armenians, yes, maybe we can call him Democrat. But can we say that the democracy, for example, is only for white people, like in the United States? There is the very sensitive discussion about that. If we accept that the democracy for one ethnic or racial group, then yes, you can call that person a Democrat. But democracy means that the Armenia should accept the territorial integrity of neighboring state. The democracy means that the Armenians should accept that 250,000 Azerbaijanis lived in Armenia, and they have right to return and live peacefully there and enjoy all the rights which Pashinyan advocate for Armenians. The report also heavily covers some other aspects of the say the narrative of government officials, but here you have some of the examples of the Armenian hatred, the animations we produced, um, depicting Azerbaijanis in a pejoratory manner. We have I think even though this is indeed very sad moment, you go through all the slides and through the pages on the in our report, when you see the Armenians how depict Azerbaijanis as a backward, they insults Azerbaijanis. But this mythology actually played very negative role for Armenians, because I believe this mythology, Armenian narrative about their superiority, helped Azerbaijan indeed to win the war, because Armenians nationals did not expect the strength and power of Azerbaijani army. The report deals with the several narratives, civilizational narratives, with regard to Armenian superiority, historical narrative about the events 20th century. But one of the strongest part of the report is how the Armenians depict Azerbaijanis again as a subhumans, non-humans. So it's all over instances, and as I said, it's not only in social media by some random users in Armenia, it's the state policy. So that is, for example, I'm going through the slides. You see how they actually depict Armenians, the Azerbaijan, and they even have the animation very popular in Armenia called Kildim, and this is how they depict Azerbaijanis. And this animation is still on YouTube. I know that many users complain to YouTube about this sort of animation, but it's still there. The conclusion of report, again, there are several features of Armenian national discourse. One is the superiority of Armenian nation as an ancient nation, as a civilized nation, against the backward, ignorant, and uncivilized Azerbaijanis. This discourse still present in Armenian discourse, and that, I think, remains a big impediment to the conflict resolution, to the reconciliation between Armenians and Azerbaijanis. What now I would like to speak about the elections in Armenia. As I said, we would like to work towards the peace and reconciliation. It's not easy. We have a burden of the conflict, especially the last 30 years, burden of occupation, destruction. Azerbaijani refugees and IDPs cannot return, still have difficulty to return to their homeland because of the landmines, because of fully destroyed infrastructure. But a bit what the Armenian elections results, it gives a bit hope. But I don't want to overestimate that. Armenians voted re-elected Pashinyan, but we have to remember two important points. First, this was maybe not much about the Pashinyan himself, but rather that vote against Kocherian and the previous regime. And even some Armenians, I had some encounters during some international conference I attended recently in Moscow, that the Kocherian-Sarkisian rule was a sort of servitude for slavery, years of slavery in Armenia. So the people voted against Kocherian. So that's the first thing. The second, the elections was not only about the Armenian foreign policy, but again about Armenian domestic policy. In this regard, Armenians opted for continuation of the reforms. That is two factors to remember. So that doesn't mean that the Pashinyan's foreign policy will have dramatic change. So we will see, of course, that during the elections campaign, Pashinyan again made some populist remarks. For example, he said that Armenia will continue to fight for Armenians in Karabakh for the so-called remedial secession. If that's the path which Armenia will follow, then unfortunately, I'm afraid we won't reach the peace very soon. That's to remember. We have also to remember, as I said, I don't think the Pashinyan is a Democrat per se. If he speaks about democracy only for Armenians, it's the racism. Democracy means rights for all people without racial, ethnic, gender discrimination. So in terms of ethnic discrimination, we don't see that. We remember that it was the Pashinyan who ordered to launch missile strikes during the night against civilians in Ganja. And because the militaries knew that they're striking the civilian areas, we're trying now to say, it was with some military installations in Ganja, and that was made by mistake. No, they knew that it was several 100 kilometers from war zone, 100 kilometers, at least 100 kilometers from Ganja to Karabakh region. And some of military installations which exist in Ganja, quite far from that area, and the missile scud, the error of missile scud, it's about 800 meters, maximum 1 kilometer. So that's not in the range of the military installations. So we have to remember that. So in this regard, I believe that it's still too early to judge what will be the policy of the new government, re-elected government. It's also, we see that Pashinyan has to deal with his diplomatic staff, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia. And yesterday, Secretary of the Security Council, Armenian Security Council, he said that the actually Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, they try to torpedo, to undermine the deal which we reached a week ago about the swap of landmines for detainees. So the Pashinyan has to deal with his diplomatic staff, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which looks like does not want reconciliation. So that's basically my thoughts on both issues, but let me address also some questions. If you have some questions, you can also address. But question number one, which I received, according to some experts, according to some experts, defend that Revanchist Kacharian and Sarkisyan lost the snap elections. How these results will affect future ideology of Armenian elites and people? I mean, will Pashinyan prepare Armenian people for the peace? I mean, I partly addressed this issue. Again, we have still wait. Again, I can understand that certain things which Pashinyan said during the pre-election, it's for the public to be re-elected. Maybe after election, now he's forming the government, he will be more sober, more constructive. We will see what messages he will deliver. One thing, I hope he made proper conclusion from his previous tenure, from his populist remarks that the Karabakh is Armenia, from his populist move, attempts to move, for example, the parliament of so-called separatists in Karabakh in front to Shusha, building the highways and all this stuff, which indeed provoked the war. Also, now it's known and confirmed that the clashes in July 2020 in Tovuz was provoked by Armenians. So let's hope. So we have another question. Do you think that the external powers have any interest to support radical discourse and groups in Armenia? This is a good question about generally external influences. For some imperialist-minded people in our neighborhood, the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan represents opportunity to exert influence on both countries, on Armenia and Azerbaijan. Unfortunately, some of the messages we hear from some politicians, policymakers, for example, from France, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and some other countries, it's driven by the desire to get ethnic votes in those countries, ethnic Armenian votes, and it does not conducive to peace, neither to reconciliation between two peoples. Some of the messages from the United States also driven by the ethnic lobby, Armenian lobby. I regret to note that the latest statement from Secretary Blinken, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, his tweet when he welcomed the swap, he only mentioned that I welcome release of Armenian detainees. He said nothing about the landmines. So this is not fair, not balanced, and not conducive to peace and reconciliation. However, I can imagine that it's the interest of the United States that the peace will be established between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I would like to believe that also in our neighborhood, some policymakers realize that Azerbaijan, as these 30 years, we work towards restoration of our territorial integrity. We will never reconcile with the attempt to detach any part of our internationally recognized territory, including now the area which is deployed, area of deployment of Russian peacekeepers. So, and it's the firm determination of Azerbaijan government and leadership to fully reintegrate those territories into Azerbaijan, including the Armenian population. So that's to say about external influences, but again, there are people, there's ethnic groups which, ethnic lobbies, sorry to say, which have bad influences. Interestingly enough, that what we see that the Armenians in diaspora, they tend to support radical policies. Not all. I'm speaking about some of the lobby groups, like ANCA in the United States or some lobby groups in France. But some of them never spent a day in Armenia. Some of them Armenians from other countries, from the Middle East, from Russia. But even those who from Armenia, they don't want to return to Armenia. Some of them voted for Kacharian in diaspora, but actually they moved from Armenia during Kacharian's rule. That's the paradox. Why you moved from Armenia, especially during Kacharian's Sargsyan rule, and you voting for him. So the interesting third question, what can you say about the Pashinyan diaspora future relations? it's hard to say. Again, the diaspora is not homogeneous. It's quite diverse group of people. More organized lobby groups, they tend to be radical. Some of them individual experts, especially in the United States, I know where for normalization of relationship with Turkey and Azerbaijan. But for Pashinyan, I think the most important thing that he got mandate from the Armenian people. So Armenian diaspora has probably disproportionate influence in Armenian politics and economy too, because a lot of money transmittance come from Armenian diaspora. And they funded illegal activities during the occupation, and probably will continue to do something to perpetuate the conflict. But now probably, I guess Pashinyan will be less dependent on the opinion of Armenian diaspora. Though he also made a visit to Europe before election, to France, to Belgium, probably to check also the sentiments of Armenian diaspora. But my guess that he will be less dependent on Armenian diaspora. Any other questions we have? Was last 3 questions? Okay. Some experts claim that because of democratic elections in Armenia, Azerbaijan will lose diplomatic struggle in West. Western countries will support Armenia. I don't think so. Again, first of all, as I said, yes, there is perception that the democracy prevails in Armenia, but as I said, I don't believe that the democracy, we can call democracy if it's democracy only for Armenian ethnic group. The second, we'll see how indeed the Pashinyan's policy evolve even internally, because what he said also that he's going to rule with hammer, with law and dictatorship of law and rules. So some of the those sentiments, has ambiguous meaning. Yeah, we see that overall the reformation is going on in the region, including in Azerbaijan. I also believe that the democracy is not a factor in the conflict for many reasons. First, this democracy is older than any incumbent leaders, both in Azerbaijan and Armenia. So it's a modern conflict began in 1980s. So before the current leaders came to power. Second, it's about territorial ambitions. It's about Great Armenian Project. It's about the Irredentist project. So that's the second. The ethnic conflict, unfortunately, they exist in democratic countries too. We know that the Quebec problem in Canada, Scotland in UK, and or Belgium, or Catalonia in Spain. So it's not only about democracy, but about ethnic identity, territorial ambitions. Sometimes the one, and this is what I think have to underline. It's not separatist conflict. This is irredentist conflict. So the idea, the slogan which Armenian nationalists launched in 1988, it's the Miatsum in Armenian language. That means the unification of Karabakh with Armenia. So I think all these factors outside of domain of democracy. So the conflict should be. We see the final reconciliation, and we have 2 tracks now, by the way. The issues related to Armenians in Karabakh and issues related between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So way outside of domain of democracy or non-democracy. It's more about the territorial integrity. When, of course, when it comes about the ethnic minority rights, Armenians in Karabakh, but let's not forget about Azerbaijanis in Armenia. So I think the final solution, fair solution of the all related matters, also the issues related to return of Azerbaijanis to Armenia and Armenians to our parts of Azerbaijan. That was the ethnic mosaic before the conflict. So kind of to sum up my response to this question. So I think the international actors realize that this conflict, yeah, the development, human rights, democracy will help to create better atmosphere. But again, if we look at some European countries, it's not enough to resolve issues related to territories and ethnic conflicts. We have also a question in Azerbaycan, sizce Rusya-Ermənistan münasibətlərin gələcəyi necə olacaq? The question about the relationship between Armenia and Russia. I think the Russia supported the elections. They already expressed, I think Peskov, the spokesman of president, already said that they welcome the results of the election. Armenia and Russia are strong allies, both political, military, and economic. Armenia is member of the Eurasian Economic Union. Armenia is member of a collective security treaty. Armenia is hosting military bases, and it looks like the Russian military presence will be expanded in Armenia. There is no indication that Pashinyan is going to change something in this regard. So I don't think there will be some radical changes in the relationship between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But if anyone would like to comment, so we can expand kind of this sort of conversation. I mean, I'm speaking about the experts from our center. Any other questions? If you would like to make comments here, no? Okay, so I think probably the brevity is the best thing. So we have this session over the 40 minutes. So I would like to thank all who came in person and also the audience, online audience. Just in conclusion, I would like to reaffirm that the Center of Analysis of International Relations will continue monitoring the situation in the region. We reports which we are doing the research. Our aim is to highlight major security and political problems, but not for the sake of just the highlighting or say or some sort of historical research, but to find the solution, to point to the problem, and then, of course, to find the solution. We're working on landmine problems, on cultural heritage. Besides the conflict-related issues, just again would like to mention that we interested in research and collaboration with foreign partners on a number of issues: regional cooperation, transport, non-alignment movement, because Azerbaijan now is chairing the non-alignment movement, and some other related issues, COVID-19, pandemic-related problems. Again, unfortunately, we have to take into account the restrictions, and hopefully these restrictions will be eased step by step. So we would like move from online format, or at least to have hybrid format. So online connection, but in person too. Thank you very much. And thank to all to my team for organizing this.